Get used to starting a part on this screen. That happens a couple times here towards the end. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Ys 2 Chronicles Plus. In the last part, we started our long adventures here in the Solomon Shrine, and now we're going to head back to Tova's sector now that we've cured Adol of being a demon rue. We actually want to go back to the exact room we got cursed in, because now we can progress past it without that dude showing back up again, because, well, he really thought there was no way for us to cure that, for some reason. And just to showcase it, this is what our enemy notes are looking like at this point. I have filled up basically everything from the past couple of areas of the Solomon Shrine we explored last time. But now it's time for the subterranean canal. This is effectively a basement layer for the Solomon Shrine. And it's a small labyrinth that reminds me uncomfortably of the sewers from Pokemon Ranger. Only thankfully there's no mucks around to give me childhood nightmares and trauma from absurd damage and a difficulty spike. You could have come down here while Adol was turned into the Demon Rue form, but you wouldn't be able to progress much further than this because of who's up here at the end of this hall. Well now, this is a surprise, if it isn't Adol Kristen. It's me, Bots, the miner from Lance. I was captured by demons in Rastini and, well, you know the rest, I suppose. Now don't be too surprised, but Lilia's here too. She escaped here with the rest of us, and she simply won't shut up about you. I do believe she's smitten. Pretty smooth, lover boy. You work fast. You should go see her and get what's coming to you. Before you actively head downstairs, make sure to talk to the other two NPCs up here for early character note obtaining. We got away from the demons easily enough, but Maria was captured. If we don't hurry, she'll be sacrificed. Yeah. Hey, aren't you Adol? I doubt you remember, I'm Noit from the Colony of Lava. A demon named Keith told me something before we came here. Seems that the passage leading to the goddess's palace has been sealed off in some peculiar manner. But if you touch a goddess statue with something once owned by the goddesses, you'll go where you need to be. Good to know. We got away from the demons easily enough, but Maria's captured. If we don't hurry, she'll be sacrificed. I forget if I talked about that earlier on, but most NPCs actively have 2 lines of dialogue. Adol! Can it be? Is it really you? It's like a dream. I never thought I'd see you again. I was just out walking not far from the village when some demons on the hunt came out of nowhere. We all fled here after a demon named Keith saved us from the bell tower where we were being held. While we were escaping, he gave me this key and said to pass it on to you. It's the master key for all the shrine doors. I'm quite certain you'll be able to make good use of it, Adol. They mentioned that being missing last time at that meeting, didn't they? Well, it's in better hands now. An ominous voice suddenly echoed from all around Adol. I must congratulate you on all your accomplishments, lapdog. I'm sure the goddesses have a treat for you. You are a most helpful soul, though. You've led me right to the hideout of these obnoxious runaways. These people have learned all too much about this forsaken land, so, of course, I simply cannot permit them to live. You cope well with your own suffering, swordsman, but how might you fare in dealing with the torment of others? My precious little runaways, since you so deeply fear sacrifice, I'll spare you that fate, in favor of another. All at once, all sound was drained from the immediate vicinity. For a moment, Adol feared he had been stricken deaf. As a token of my thanks to you for finding these wretches, I've spared you from the spell's effects. Behold, and despair at how powerless you truly are. It was as if time had stopped for everyone except Adol. Lilia stood in place, still and silent as a statue. It seems for every step forward or two we make in this place, something horrific happens, or at least we get set back a step, and, boy. Worth noting all the same, though, that hideout actively gets added to your return spell, I believe, as a location you can return back to at any point in time. Not that there's much reason to now, of course, but in the case you ever wanted to, as a shortcut back here to the subterranean canal or something like that, it works. In fact, actually, that would have saved me just a mote of time later on in the LP, but I frankly didn't think it was that important. With that said, in that little jump cut there, I did max out the Delpus's enemy notes. You might be noticed we're actually getting towards the end of those. There's not many enemies left in the game in terms of just pure new ones. Mind you, not like many of the enemies really stand out outside of their really neat sprite work here and again. I think I brought this up in Ease 1, but just to say it again, considering it's attached to the same system. The bump combat system's biggest weakness is, get this, the combat. But less so for how you damage enemies, more for how limited enemies themselves are in attack patterns, because largely it's either they run into you or they have a projectile and that's it, with very little flavor between them. For right now, though, we've gotten ourselves our 5th magic spell, the Time Magic. It's effectively Ease 2's version of the mirror from Ease 1. If you use it, it costs magic, and then any enemy on screen is frozen where they are, making them ripe for the picking for grinding or otherwise. Theoretically, it could have been useful in grinding the Zavanite if I had gone further before doing that, but frankly, it's not that big of a loss in either direction. It's, I think, the least useful spell in the game because every other spell is either required for plot or is generally really good. But honestly, for a game that has only 6 spells, as distinct as they all are, the fact that only one of them isn't that useful, to me at least, is pretty good odds. In that chest, we get ourselves the Tier 4 shield, the Iron Shield, the match to the set we got back at Zalem's Best back in Ramia Village, which we're now teleporting back to in order to heal, as well as head back to the entrance at Hadal's sector just to use it as a convenient starting point for where we want to go next. What we currently are doing is opening any of the locked doors that the shrine key that Lilia gave us can open. You could have found several of these if you explored around prior to getting the key. In fact, the Iron Shield itself is actually behind the one we saw last part before we got cursed into a rue. Over in that general direction towards where we got the Rhoda Fruit, I believe. For right now, our current goal is to head back to the Fact sector as the key allows us to open up another door in this general vicinity. In specific, if you had explored around the Fact sector a little more in depth last time, you would have noticed there's a door up here on the very top right of this layer. And if you went in here a little further, you would find there is another locked door here. This ultimately leads us to a secondary section of the subterranean canal. This one's a little less complicated in terms of its layout than the prior one, but there's very important stuff to grab in here all the same, especially, plot-adjacent stuff. First off, we want to come up here to this very top right corner for the Silver Pendant. The pendant itself is actually one of the hardest to use items in the game in that if you don't read its description and listen to every dialogue we've seen in the game thus far, it's probably the hardest to derive what you need to do with it. Actually using it is as easy as having it equipped and then touching something else, but we'll see what I mean about that when we get there. For now, I also want to reach the very bottom left over here for a Celceta flower, because hey, it's always nice to have one of those around. And with those 2 items grabbed, that's all we need to do here in the subterranean canal for now. There'll be another reason for us to come back here later on, but for right now I'm just going to leave here and actively grind out the Deptheloids here for their stats as, well, this I think is the only room in the game you can actually fight them, so you might as well. And along the way, I got myself another level. Now that we have the Silver Pendant in hand, though, we want to head back to the sector of Hadal. Not just to reset where we are in the area to begin with for good reference, but also because our actual destination is here. I mentioned earlier, I think last time or this time, that there is a room in the center you could have explored. There's a door in there that you could have entered up to now, but there was no purpose to, as we didn't have the Silver Pendant that allows us to do anything beyond that room. With that said, we are coming up on a boss fight, so prepare whatever you need to prepare. I recommend the Hawk Idol as usual on top of Fire Magic and the Herb. And, just to say it outright, if you're arachnophobic, you might want to look away for the next minute or two. Boss here is Dreugar. This spider will slowly walk towards you, leaving itself very open to fire, while either firing blue homing shots at you or spreading a set of eggs around itself that will then themselves explode into an array of bullets in most visible directions. There's usually a pretty easy spot to see to avoid them, but if you're too close to them, you're probably going to get hit all the same. Charge up your fire magic, fire directly into its core, and it'll die pretty quickly. I believe its legs are invincible and armored, though, so try to actually aim directly above or below the main body. Ease 2. Much more interesting boss fights than Ease 1. They're also much easier than the ones in Ease 1 because of that, though. Behind the boss is our next goddess statue. Words began to appear in the blank faded parchment. Great warrior, you have braved many dangers to get here, but at last you have reached Solomon's Shrine. This statue can guide you to the heart of the shrine where we reside. If you have a pendant, place it upon your neck and touch the statue, and the path shall be open to you. There are 2 pendants to be found. A silver path lies before you, as does a path of gold. So effectively, in order to access further sections of the Shrine of Solomon, we need to use the silver and gold pendants. With that said, we've only found the silver because the gold is located past where the silver gets us. So, we only have 1 path forward for now. The Shrine of Solomon does admittedly start pretty overwhelming with the amount of paths you have and how many floors are in each subsection, but as you progress through, it actively gets, I'm not going to say relatively linear, but easier to navigate in terms of where you haven't been yet, on top of how many options there are from where to go. As once you reach this point, there's only really 2 directions you can go at any point in time, and most of them go by pretty quickly. Adol heard a voice coming from the Layla shell.
Adol, there's a boy here to see you. He says he has urgent news. Please come back to the village so we can speak of this face to face. But be careful. Get here when you can. Don't rush. You'll let your guard down.
We'll be heading back there eventually, but for right now, I want to focus on the enemies in front of us and move forward in the East Wing here. Now, you can actually briefly see them on screen a second there. There's the forkless enemies around here, but there's also the blue enemies. I actively don't fight the blue enemies for a little bit still. 2 guards can be heard speaking to one another in the language of the demons. Well, I'd say it's a pretty good indication that we should probably hear what they have to say. So let's actively talk to them as a Roo. The key to the water control room is missing. I wonder if Keith took it. I chased Keith down this way a little while ago, but he managed to escape through here. Well, I guess that Keith guy's still roaming about. These are notably different enemies than the Barots and the Zerots. These are Girots, so make sure you grind out their stats along the way if you're trying to get 100% of the enemy notes. But yeah, that blue enemy that's actually on screen right now, you can only encounter them here around the East Wing. I forget to do that until last. I do get their notes, but they are the last enemy notes I get. So if you can find a pair of them to fight now, do it. And in here, we get the next tier shield, the Battle Shield. I love that thing's sprite. It's so good. With as many slots as there are here on the equipment screen, of course, there's only 6 pieces of equipment per equipment slot type. So this is our penultimate shield, so we're doing pretty good with equipment so far. So as for our actual goal here in the Shrine's East Wing, we want to find our way down here and head down this staircase for the 3rd portion of the subterranean canal. If there's an item in here, I forget what it is off the top of my head. Our actual goal is to actually talk to someone on the far east side of it. But in order to reach the far east side, we need to head west a good bit first. The web of bridges on top of the sides of the canals makes these areas a little bit hard to navigate, but they are ultimately simpler than the top side of the shrine, just for how few layers there are.
You're the one who helped me when I was locked in the burdened West Lava prison. My name is Keith. I lost control of my emotions, so I ran away from the guards and hid here. You need to contact the goddesses, right? Then what you need to do is go to the goddesses' palace. From what I can tell, though, the only way left to get there is to slip in through this canal. Go to the water control room. Once you're there, close the water gates to dam the canal. That's the first step. Here, I've got the key. Take it. Consider it my thanks for your help in the lava prison. I'm going to stay here for a while and try to calm myself.
So with that key in hand, our next destination is actually the first chunk of the subterranean canal we accessed through the Tova sector, right after where we got turned into a demon Roo last part. But for one thing, there's an enemy around here I want to grind out, not only for a level, but also because I want to get their notes, because again, this is the only area they appear in the sea myths. But afterwards, I want to take a brief detour down to Lance Village for the first time in a good while, as since our gold is now maxed out, I can safely make the priciest purchase in the game back here at Jade's Oddities.
Events of late have been simply dreadful, yet somehow I believe Lilia will be alright. I'm not sure why, really, but I do. Don't you feel the same way? It's as if she's being watched over by a guardian angel.
Now, for my wife out there, it's the demons I'd be worried about. She'd give him one hell of a talking to.
Oh, yeah, do you know Kate? She's the woman outside who won't shut up a trap, no matter what.
We want to buy the elixir we saw here all the way back in part 1 or 2.
Ah, you have a keen eye, sir. This is something of true worth. I'd even go so far as to call it my pride and joy. I know I said before that I had no real must-buys here, but that's because this little vial is priceless to me. I put it out more for bragging rights than to actually sell it. In fact, it's the only one of its kind in all the world. I'm legitimately proud to own it. Quite the miracle drug it is. It'll bring you back to life after suffering a mortal wound. If I had to, I suppose I could sell it, though I've priced it well out of the range of most sane individuals. 60,000 gold is what I'm asking.
Yeah, sure, no wonder.
I can't believe it. You actually bought it. You must really have been saving up. It pains me to sell it, but I'm impressed by your dedication. Use it well, young man.
The elixir is a rather unique item indeed. There is only one available per save file, but it's a complete restoration from death in the middle of combat no matter what. Which means it's very precious and you really shouldn't waste it unless you're absolutely sure you want to use it. I usually bring it exclusively into the final boss fight, but hey, do what you do. For right now, though, we've made our way back to Ramia Village, as you might remember Hadat called us a few moments ago, and now if you look around, Tarf's in his house for some reason. Kid, why did you come all the way this way?
Mr. Adel, you're too slow. Come on, hurry it up already. So, it happened right after you left. I saw that guy in the black cloak just outside the village. I was being all brave and sneaky and followed him all the way here. I lost sight of him, though, just after arriving in this village. Mr. Adel, I'd watch out for that guy if I were you. He's real bad news. It seems like the demons really have it in for you, too, mister. You've been put through a lot.
Well, I guess you're just here now. I mean, good to have you around, I guess, but... Now, again, I actually do screw up a little bit here in the footage. The fastest way to actually get back to that portion of the subterranean canal is to use the return spell to head back to the hideaway. But I completely forgot about that during recording, so I don't use that. I walk all the way there. I mean, nice to have the reminder, I guess, in the case you're, low on MP or something like that, but you really should just teleport. The experience from enemies around these areas at this point, because of the levels I've gained from the Zava Knight, are effectively low anyway, so not exactly the most reliable. So we got a weird-looking door there that reminds me of the evil door from Darm Tower, and we got the floodgate key that opens it. There's a lever here. Pull it. As Adal pulled the lever, he heard a low metallic grating, followed by the sound of rushing water. And thus we flushed the toilet, and all three chunks of the subterranean canal have now had their water drained. Why does this matter? Well, if you were paying attention earlier as we were walking around the three chunks of the canal, there are some divots in the south-facing walls. Those are now staircases you can use to walk through the canals where the water once was and access items in areas we couldn't before, such as the battle armor. Needless to say, very good defense upgrade. No real reason not to equip it. Eventually, this series will do a thing where there's several quote-unquote ultimate armors where, yeah, this one might have higher stats, but this one might have an extra status protection you might prefer, things like that. But in a lot of the early entries, it is just a stat boost. You should always upgrade unless you're doing a challenge run. Next up, we want to make our way to the southwestern portion of this chunk of the canal, as there's another item down there in a room that is much more clearly marked than the hidden rooms were back in Rastini Mine. If you just worm around this particular corner, and the divot on the southern wall indicates a door. And here's another Seabith, as well as the battle sword, so we now have the entire battle set. Something I like that some later Ys games do as well, by the way, is that if you have an entire set of armor like this and you equip it, Adal's sprite does actually change its color. From here, we want to make our way down to the southeastern section of this chunk of the canal, which is a much more straightforward route because we already saw the staircase to do it earlier. But before we head through the door in the very southeast of the area, we want to grab this just up here for the Falcon Idol. This is effectively a stronger version of the Hawk Idol. Whereas the Hawk Idol made our fireballs home in when it's charged, this makes you shoot out several homing shots at once that are now blue and have greater homing capabilities. It's real good. Oh, hey, Keith.
It's me, Keith. This is the entrance to the bell tower known as the Campanile of Lane. And the sacrificial ritual is beginning. On the fifth toll, the girl, Maria, will die. Zava is lying in wait at the entrance, but I'm not strong enough to fight her. You need to save that poor innocent girl in my place, Adal. Please.
Oh boy. That's a little heavy, but I think we can do it. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 10, Let's hope we can save Maria. See you guys then.